Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. We are out here at Rosalina Memorial Station, where we finally got our supply pod Victor hooked up and mostly drained. We still have a whole lot of life support in here, and no fuel. We've transferred all of that into the lander. We had a little excess that we put down here in our storage pod, and we put a little bit here in our old supply pod, which we are going to dispose of, and then wait for our window to get to Tremonia and get this crew cycled back home. So, Laura Douglas, if you please, she will exit the lander very slowly. Man, I love how much smoother this thing is when it's the first vehicle thing you load after a fresh restart. It makes a world of difference. All right, and now we're going to carefully avoid the landing legs. Yeah, we have a little bit of a hike here to get around to disconnect that old supply pod so that we can dispose of it. Yeah, I'm a little scared to do the jumping thing because of all the solar panels that are just kind of hanging out here. No big deal, but I don't know. We'll probably speed this next little bit up. All right, unlink. Now, seek shelter. There we go. Waiting for that signal delay SAS on. Throttle it up. Excellent. And we'll just run it. Oh, RCS. That would have been good. Yeah, about a second or so from now. Let's give this guy a good bit of speed. And flame out. Of course, now I have to go back to the map view. We just left render range. Of course we did. No big deal. We're just gonna walk away from this pod so that we don't have to watch it actually hit the ground, but this way it will also completely destruct. Alright, and back here again. I don't know how long we have until Tremonia is overhead. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a while, but let's set the target, at least. I don't need vessel mass up anymore. I do need rendezvous planner. 154 degrees, that's interesting. Wonder how low that's going to get and how long it's going to take before said target is overhead, because we're going to orbit this way, so it looks like it might be a while. Let me just check my alarms. 32 days until I have to do something, and really I need to be there a couple of days prior. So we'll say 28 days, which should be a full orbit, so I think we have time to get this done. We'll just leave everything hooked up until then. Line up our orbits, our orbital track, and let's see which way we're going to go. Now we have something being completed. We can probably just delete that alarm. 26 days. We can get a whole lot done in 26 days. Yep, good enough. 62. And of course, nighttime. Great. Oh, great. We're going to have to pump over some electric charge. Let's get Laura out of here first. Come on, crew hatch. EVA. No engineers left behind. We're going to need to keep her outside for a while so that we can do the transfer. That was dumb. But our primary concern is really electric charge. Rosalina does operate at a deficit during the long lunar night, but there's lots and lots of battery storage. Unfortunately, it drains the Lunar Uber rather quickly, and we would like to have something in those batteries while we make our ascent into sunlight. All right, we're going to hope that's good enough for right now. Although we will take a little food, water, and oxygen with us. I think at a 4 crew capacity, this thing fully topped off, something like 25 or 26 days, which is well longer than our rendezvous should take, but can you blame me for really wanting to play it safe under any circumstances? Alright. Let's cut the tube and get this flight underway. Board. Okay, good. It kept our targeting data. That's awesome. Let's go ahead and pull in the ladders. We need to vent things. CO2 dump. Why does that only say 1700 meters per second? That cannot be right. All tanks full, right? Yeah. And unlocked. I am a little concerned about this. That cannot be right. Alright, so after some quick investigative work, I figured out that at least 3 of these side tanks, which ones I don't know, are not being recognized as attached to the craft or fueling the engines. And now we have a negative delta V number. Oh, well, that's real good. That is absolutely fantastic. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to lock these tanks. Okay, so it's this side that is getting recognized. You'll notice that locking these tanks does nothing to the DV figures. So really locking them is a moot point. But we're going to lock them. We're going to keep this tank open because it is our largest by far, and we're just going to continue to pump fuel into the center line and hopefully keep everything all nice and even. So throttle, RCS, and 3, 2, 1, ignition. Maybe we should do, control from here. There we go. We'll get our things figured out. In. And hopefully that will just keep the fuel flowing correctly. Let's bring the gear up for no reason whatsoever. Val is in here, right? Okay, good. Why do we have signal delay? That's odd. Alright, good. We're pulling evenly from all tanks. So hopefully this will keep us on balance, and wow, this is really dumb. Exceptionally dumb. But we're on our way, and hopefully this will keep things sorted out. At least for the time being. Yeah, it won't. The astute among you may have noticed already that the fuel is not draining evenly. This is something I wouldn't pick up during the live recording for far too long, nor would I actually think through about how to balance the fuel tanks once they've become suitably unstable. The 3 tanks that are technically, I don't know if they're not connected or why they're not recognizing, because they're obviously connected to the spacecraft itself, are do not have to feed the RCS, whereas the other 3 tanks do, and I think that's what's causing the majority of the indiscrepancy. And with the tank locked, we actually have a thruster on the opposite side that is not responsive. Again, something that I wouldn't pick up on for far, far, far too long. This list is getting really, really bad. Whoa, 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 come on. All those tanks are locked. How are we off balance? How are we off balance so badly? Oh no, this tank wasn't... That's not going to do us a whole lot of good because it's still... We need to just buy some time to apogee, maybe get our altitude high enough, and hopefully we can figure this out in orbit. Get the fuel tanks rebalanced. This is a serious problem. Come on. Quit fighting me, man. Yeah, this is the part where the struggle became entirely too real. The imbalance becoming more pronounced, my frustration with it growing ever steadily as it became much, much harder to hit that relative inclination figure and actually gain altitude to where we could buy us some time to transfer fuel around. All right. We've got, what, a minute before we start falling from 38 kilometers. God, we've gone nowhere. Let's see how much consolidation we can do. Into the big tank. This was kind of a first attempt to try to maybe consolidate fuel into a single tank, hoping that that would help offset the imbalance in fuel consumption issue. It did not, but you can see very clearly the imbalance here. We got 400 liters left on one side and not on the other. What the? Oh, come on. It was starting to get a little angry, and time is now a huge problem as we have started to fall back towards the surface, which of course is not a good thing, which really just led to some panic lighting of the engines to try to get some speed under our belt, or at least try to gain some altitude, while I try to very panicky think through how to get this thing balanced out. Why are you still spinning? They're draining unevenly. These two tanks are draining unevenly. Why are you draining unevenly? This one's draining slower than that one. This is ridiculous. Alright, yeah, we're going to start gaining altitude. We're just going to gain a whole bunch of altitude. What the hell? Yeah, now it's off by a whole lot. Come on, man. And this is the point where the fuel levels were low enough to cause a pretty serious torque problem, at least with as much as they were offset. And also starting to notice that thruster not firing was certainly causing an issue. But trying to get us down to really, if we could have one tank on either side with fuel in it and the other two empty, we've got a pretty good option for balancing it. We just need to get the levels low enough to make it happen. But we also need time to apoapsis to make any of these rebalances happen. So for right now, we're just kind of stuck trying to keep things as balanced out as we can, keep as much torque through those thrusters as we can, and try to get our relative inclination down to something that's passable, which is really difficult when all your spacecraft wants to do is tumble around and fall down. All right, we got 9 minutes to kill before we can do this, and basically I think the only tanks that have anything left in them, yeah, are two large lateral tanks, which are not feeding anything. So we'll try to get as much of this fuel into the center of the vehicle as we can. Oh, good. This is going so incredibly well. We have to try to balance those two out. Yeah, they're off by like 400 units per. Great. With all of our lead time now buying us basically insurance, we'll get the center stack filled, and then we'll pump one of the main lateral tanks into cross opposing side tanks. Really, this kind of divides each tank by two and puts one half on each side, and then we'll combine them into the center tank to balance out the load and give us the minimum number of open fuel tanks for which to monitor. This was kind of why I was waiting for us to have just two empty tanks and one tank with fuel in it, because this is a much easier, more efficient way to balance things. And now that we have time to actually do it, because all that transferring does eat up some time, and we've only got about a 300 meter per second push before we can be in orbit and at least be safe from dying on impact. A light to the engine after a fast forward to our apoapsis, and the craft stays relatively stable. Finally, still uneven feeding of fuel, but yeah, we saw that coming. But we're now in orbit, thankfully, and we can try to make rendezvous and maybe suss some of this problem out. Okay. Off balance again. Again. This is going to turn into so much fun. So a quick balancing pass on our fuel one last time before we start to make our nodes to intercept Lunar Station. Really, we should be able to do everything we need to just with the 372 meters per second that are in our central tank. So we will set ourselves up a node to make that happen after waiting the appropriate amount of orbits. But while we've got a few minutes, we'll just take a look over at Tremonia while we're letting for some time to pass before jumping back to our Lunar Uber. As we are coming up on our closest approach, we'll set up our node for our intercept, 21.8 meters per second, no big deal. And then with that done out of the way, we will tune our separation with thrusters as per usual. And this is the part where I realized that thruster wasn't working and was causing a whole lot of wiggle. So Lord Douglas is going to jump out here and try to relocate said thruster. And we'll just go ahead and do the same for the other side to try to keep some kind of balance. It's still not firing. And it makes our imbalance and our wiggle a whole lot worse. So she will actually jump out and move that thruster back down. We're going to take one more quick balance of fuel before we put the thruster back. I realize it's not working because the tanks on that side are not attached. It's probably a good bet that computer core is not attached either. But we are coming up on our intercept with Lunar Station, 30.3 meters per second burn. We'll do that as last minute as we can to try to limit some of our off-centeredness. We really only have one option for docking, and that is the docking extension arm there. So as soon as we can make sure that we're going to swing clear of the solar panels, we'll bring one of our own solar panels in to make sure that we're not smashing things together, and then try to get ourselves lined up for a docking. Not very easy when you're so off balance and you have a thruster that doesn't want to cooperate, although unlocking that fuel tank did solve it. I just caught on way too late. So after a backup and a reapproach, we will go in for hard dock. Holy crap. Well, they're safe. At least for now. I'm just not sure this Uber is going to pass its next safety check. So, man, I really wanted to go ahead and bring the Perseus home this episode, but I am beat. That was hair-pullingly stressful. So I think we're actually going to go ahead and call that an episode. So thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out and white-knuckling this out with me. I really do appreciate it, and I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later.